Well, hello everyone. I'm Rosa Linda Román. I go by Rosa Linda, and I'm here with my friend. What's
Hi,
your
it's
name?
Vyas.
Hi, Ash. And this is Friends and Authors Live. We do this live stream once a week. We are a couple of indie authors who have realized that we have some wisdom to share, and we like to do that once a week on Tuesdays, 1 o'clock my time in the afternoon, which is basically Denver time. And Ash, where are you again?
I'm in Germany, so it's right past 9 o'clock.
Right. And so a little housekeeping to let people know if you are here with us live in the studio, like if you're watching on Facebook or Substack or YouTube, you can actually put comments in the comment section of whatever app you're watching us on, and then we'll get those comments here in the studio. So do that, and then we'll address any questions or whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk about that toward the end of the show. So awesome. That's the main number one thing I wanted to say. And let's get right to it. So, first of all, we talked about a lot of different possibilities for what this show was going to be, what we were going to talk about. There's so much going on in the indie author world, and we could talk for hours and days about it. But we've decided, I think, to really just kind of let's slow down and talk about some of the things that are working for us. And specifically, I think we're going to try to talk a little bit about maybe some of the apps that work for us. So, yeah, I think that's what we're going to talk about today.
Sounds good.
So, one of the things that you mentioned in your workflow, so first of all, everyone should know, and if you haven't seen it, go back to last week's show where Ash talked about his book launch. So, actually, I'd love to start with that. This time last week, you were just launching the latest book, which was book number 15, I believe, your 15th published book. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. And so it was a big day last week, and you weren't sure at that time. I mean, it looked like it was off to a good start, but you didn't have the numbers in yet, and you didn't have kind of that initial week-long push of ads and all of the things you do to try to get people to notice you on a book launch. So I would love to talk a little bit about just how did it go?
It went well. I mean, it's always a little hectic, right? Because you're watching with bated breath to see how it does. But if you have an established series, and as you said, it was book four in the series. Generally, if people stick around for book four, they probably like something, right? So it gets easier with each consecutive book in a series.
Right. And so you feel like it was on par with what you expected, or was it a little better, a little worse? Any thoughts
I've
on
I-
how it
I've
went?
had better launches, but it was decent. And the Western series, Westerns are kind of a niche. Like it's a genre that I'm very fond of, having grown up, in Texas. But it is a niche. I mean, it tends to ebb and flow. Like, the interesting thing about the Westerns, at least for me, is once the current presidential administration came to office, Western sales surged. Now, I don't know if there's any causality
Interesting.
there, but that seems to be the case. So,
That is so interesting. And have you had any people comment like, "Oh yeah, this is exactly what I've been looking for in this," you know, as a result, or is it just so happens to correlate?
yeah, it might not be. I mean, causality is hard to establish for anyone who's suffered through statistics, but it also might just be like the popularity of TV shows like Yellowstone and stuff. Like Westerns, everyone always says the Western's dead, and it always ends up coming back every couple of sometimes it takes a while, but it's pretty much the quintessential American genre.
Awesome. One of the things we talked a little bit about last week was just kind of the launch process and the launch strategy. This time you actually you had a different launch strategy instead of doing promo stacks, which is where you set up, you pay a fee to get people who have a list to share your book to their list. And you usually, as an author, when you're releasing your book, you do that maybe every other day. You have a new promo going out. You focused more on the ads this time around, the Facebook ads, right?
Yes, yes. I normally use kind of a barbell strategy, which is I run Facebook ads in general for as my primary marketing source. But before a new launch, you want to let people know, hey, uh, you know, if the main character, for example, in the series is Wade Maverick. So you run Facebook ads, to the effect that, hey, Wade Maverick's back, and these are his new adventures, and this is available February 8th, right? And so just to let people know, and the Facebook algorithm is pretty well versed in identifying your readers. So yeah, you just let people know. Now, generally, I'll also do the second half of that strategy is um, the newsletters. Like you can do a stack, like you said. Like there are services out there like Free Booksy or the Fussy Librarian, which will have lists of dedicated readers and Facebook ads that they run in conjunction with yours. To basically just get the word out to hundreds of thousands of readers that for a fee. Obviously, they charge you for that over the course the first 5 days of the launch. And that generally the way you do it, there's different ways to do it. You can discount some of your earlier books, like the first book in the series. Sometimes you can set it to free and set consecutive books in the series at a discount, and then the new release at full price. So readers can get a bargain. They can get the entire series for a fraction of the price that they would pay for the whole thing, one at a time. But there's all sorts of things they can do to get the word out and get your book in the hands of readers.
Yeah, which is the ultimate goal, getting it in the hands of the readers that actually like your kind of books. Because, if you
Exactly.
get it in
Yeah.
the wrong hands, that actually ends up costing you money for nothing, and
Yeah.
even
Well,
works against you.
but that's interesting because it in some ways it's more straightforward for certain genres than others. So I write westerns, which is kind of niche, but they don't actually have a western category. They have historical fiction, right? So that's probably the closest thing because I like to think my books are thrilling, but these westerns aren't thriller genre, and they're certainly not history; they're fiction. So historical fiction is about the category that's there. So
Yeah. And
hopefully,
that's an interesting point you make about the genre, because we're basically like, when people ask you, oh, what are your books about? Or what a genre do you write in? It doesn't always correlate when you're talking about Amazon in particular and you have your books on there. And as an author, as an indie author, you have to go through and choose which categories should this be in. And for me, when I first released my books, Death Wounds, which is the first in the series, I had put it under conspiracy thrillers. And it is that. There is a conspiracy and it is a thriller. But then I realized, well, a lot of the also bots, which I don't know if people know, but like on Amazon, you'll see what we call like the real estate of the screen. And you've got your book, and then below it'll say what people who bought your book also bought. And so and they recommend that to future customers who come in and like they're looking at your book, and then they're like, oh, this book down here looks interesting. And a lot of times they're sponsored, but they try to match it to what your genre is, so that because Amazon wants you to keep buying books, and they don't really care if it's my book or your book or some other person's book, as long as you're buying, right? So I did an analysis of that before last book's launch. So the last book in November was the fourth in the series. And I realized I had put three categories: mystery thrillers, because a lot of the also bots were mysteries. And sure enough, they were very much like my books in terms of like tone and themes. But then I also put Hispanic American literature, because I'm Puerto Rican. Our main character is Puerto Rican. There's a lot of bilingual scenes in the book. So I put it under Hispanic American literature and women's crime fiction, because she's, solving crimes and she's a woman. And so I wasn't sure. And sure enough, I ended up making it to the top, to number one on both Hispanic American literature and women's crime fiction categories. And so for me, that was a really good move to kind of shift to those genres, but it could have been a disaster as well, because it is a guessing game in some ways.
Yeah, it's a guessing game, and they're just kind of, uh, things you learn over time, generally from experienced authors who've gone through it and are kind enough to teach you. Like, for example, um, my Eagle Feather Saga series, the first series I wrote, I didn't really know how to market it in the beginning. I was new to Facebook ads, and I remember talking to an author, and I said, well, I think it's a decent book, but I guess people aren't that interested. It's fine. And he said, well, okay, well, what genre is it? I'm like, well, I wrote it for basically teenagers, right? So I guess young adults. So he said, well, who are you marketing it to? Like what? Because Facebook ads let you pick the age of folks, and the gender that you're marketing it to. And I said, well, I'm marketing it to both males and females, and 18 to 65. And he said, well, that's your problem. And I said, well, what do you mean? It's for young adults, right? And he said, yeah, unfortunately, no one in America under 40 reads. And the average young adult reader is a 40-year-old college educated American woman. So he said, shift your marketing focus. And on a Facebook, you can do that with an ad. You can target which demographic you want. So literally, like I trusted him. So I raised the age from 26 to to uh, 65 and older. And
Yeah.
and some ads I actually ran targeting people 40 and over, and those are the most successful ads. 40-year-old college educated women, right?
It's so
So
interesting.
yeah,
That's
it's
so
it's
interesting, isn't it?
yeah, there's a lot to it that you kind of learn bit by bit.
Well, and of course, that is a generalization. Like, there are young people that read. I can attest to that because I have three of them that live in my house or that have lived in my house that are voracious readers, much more so than I would fit your demographic, or almost, not quite 60, but getting, up there. And yet, like, of course, we have to make generalizations when we are trying to target who our readers might be, because until you really nail that and kind of figure that out, it's going to continue to be a guessing game. So you do have to make assumptions about, okay, I've got more people that are this demographic that are looking at my book at least.
No, that's true. I didn't mean to make a definitive statement on the state
I
of
know.
reading in America.
No,
I
I
just
know.
when I set the age group higher, I started making money. So
Well, and
that's
that's important.
right.
Which actually I think is a really important thing to mention. I think sometimes we are so we're so focused on the craft, writing the best book that we can write and saying, and getting our message out. But it's really important, I think, to remember this is a business. And especially as an indie author, a big part of our job is to get the book in the right hands, and we want to make money at it because, well, it is wonderful just to write for the sake of writing. And there are many people who want to just do that, and it's not a business for them. I know you and me, I feel this way, that I want this to be the way that I make a living. And in order to do that, we do need to follow, see what's selling and what's not. We can you talk a little bit about, and we should do a whole show probably at some point on Facebook ads. And by the way, I put in here, if anyone's here live, drop a note in the comments because we will see them, as you can see here in the studio. So, but I was just thinking, like, when I was learning Facebook ads from you, from the guy who, I don't know, can I say his name, that taught all of us, you have to try a bunch of different ads. You don't just make a Facebook ad and put it up there, right? You're constantly testing and trying to find out what works.
No, there's absolutely, just an entire, you know, world of knowledge that to Facebook ads, and folks do it in different ways, and folks have success in different ways. The one thing that at least I've experienced, I guess, is it the Pareto principle or the Pareto principle, where 80% of your revenue comes from like 20% of your ads. Like, so I'm constantly testing Facebook ads, and I know a number of author friends who've had success on the platform do that the same. Like, you're constantly testing ads. Most of them are decent or not that good. I mean, fair, sorry, not decent, but fair to not that good. But then you get one or two great ads, or if one superstar ad that runs for 6 months, and that'll make a big chunk of your revenue for the year. But it's a constant, you know, discovery. It's almost a scientific method that you're constantly testing, your ads, your market, your demographic. Like for example, the Texas Tales series that I wrote, my second Western series, was largely based on the feedback from Facebook demographics, because I figured out it makes sense in hindsight. A lot of folks from Texas read Westerns, and I thought, well, with the pace of life, instead of reading an entire Western, novel, 300-page novel, maybe they'd like a collection of short stories, which are about half the size, half the length, excuse me, and they can listen to them on audiobooks or things like that. And so I that came straight from the demographics of Facebook, right? So
Right.
there's a lot to it.
There is a lot to it. All right. Anything else you want to say on that before we move on to the next subject?
No.
Okay, so one of the things we were talking about that I thought was worth discussing has to do with kind of this whole draft to digital thing. I actually don't know anything about it. So I was hoping you would enlighten me live on the air. What is draft to digital and what's the point
Oh,
of using it?
okay. Well, I'm certainly not an expert on draft to digital. I've actually just been going down that path recently, but I think I can explain uh, in reference to libraries. I can explain what I'm
Okay.
doing and what's going on. So, as you know, Amazon has Kindle Unlimited, right? Which is a program where I think you pay a monthly subscription, and then you have the right to um, borrow a number of books every month. From our perspective, as an author using the Amazon platform, you can it's optional to enroll your books in Kindle Unlimited. What that means is, if you enroll your books in Kindle Unlimited, you are in contract with Amazon for 90 days, and you agree that your book will not be sold anywhere but Amazon for that 90-day period. And then you can either renew or you can opt out at the end of 90 days. Um, for that exclusivity, what Amazon offers you is you get money for page reads from anyone in Kindle Unlimited who borrows your book for that period. This is going to be substantial for myself and a lot of author friends of mine. Uh, Half their revenue comes from the Kindle Unlimited program, but the price is you cannot sell your ebooks anywhere else during that 90-day period. Now, the thing is, uh, you get reader feedback, and folks are on limited budgets, and a lot of folks ask, well, why aren't your books in libraries? Um, and you can have print books in libraries if the libraries choose to buy them, but previously, Amazon, if you were in Kindle Unlimited, like as I explained, your books couldn't be sold anywhere else other than Amazon.
Right.
Recently, I think it was last September, Amazon changed its rules and allowed people within Kindle Unlimited to sell their ebooks to libraries. And the way this program works is it works through another site called Draft to Digital, which is a distribution platform, uh,
Right.
and they have agreements with a number of online libraries. Like for example, I think the largest network for getting ebooks to libraries is called Overdrive. I think it's in 70
Yeah.
countries and has, and basically, so basically what you do is you take the book you have, the ebook in say EPUB format or Word format. I think those are probably the two most common formats. You open a draft to digital account. It doesn't matter if you are in KU and within the 90-day contract period with Amazon, because Amazon has relaxed and changed that regulation. And generally, um, the libraries can pay for the books, the ebook, in one of two ways. They can buy it outright, uh, or they can pay you a fraction. I think it's 1/10 of the book every time someone checks it out. I think that varies by the institution. Uh,
Sure.
and from the author's perspective, one thing that librarians have actually told us is, ebooks are often cheaper than print books. So they've told us, like, sell the thing at multiples of what you sell your ebook, because if they buy it once, they're going to get multiple use out of it, and you're not going to. It's not like you're selling a book each time, right? So generally, you can sell your
Right.
ebook to the libraries on draft to digital at a higher price, depending on their methodology. And so
So,
this is
so
great.
just to kind of uh, reiterate it, in up until now, up until they made this change, you could not have your book in the library. And I would go to the libraries and people, oh well, how do we get your book? And I didn't know how. And correct me if I'm wrong. Draft to digital. There's also Ingram Spark or Ingram. I don't know which it is,
Yeah,
but
I think
another way to do it.
there is another way to do it, but for, I'm not sure exactly what's transpired, but everyone that I know draft to digital has the relationships, and I think friends of mine on Amazon mentioned it, so that's the route that I
Yeah.
went. And there might be some connection between them. I actually don't know. There might be other ways to do it, but this is one way to do it.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention Letitia is here live. Hello, so happy to see you. And she mentioned that in her town's library does this, and I really do think that ultimately, if we do this, and you said you are in the process of actually doing this, so you can submit it to the libraries, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
If
absolutely.
we do
I
that,
have
then the next step, because it's you can have it available to libraries, but then the next step, I think, and I'm pretty sure, is to have everyone you know go to their local library and say, "Hey, do you have Rosa Linda's Death Wounds? Do you have A.K. Vyas's Eagle Feather?" And then they request it, and then the next time that library does the purchasing, then they look it up and they go, "Oh, we can actually purchase that."
yeah, yeah. As I said, I'm just in the process of getting the books, onto draft to digital. They have their own marketing mechanism, and that's an entire. As I said, there's a lot of stuff, right? So that's an entirely new thing to figure out. Is okay now that they're at all of these libraries, or potentially available to all these libraries. How do you get the libraries to be interested in your ebooks, right? And that's the thing to stress. This is
Right,
only ebooks
right.
for now. Yeah.
Which is different than, yeah, it's a different animal. So for me, I think it's exciting. I do read a lot through the libraries. I use the Libby app, and that's, I think it's connected to Overdrive. But yeah, having the potential to have your ebooks in the libraries is really great. That's different, however, than when we're talking about paperbacks. Now, people talk about all the time. So while you have to be exclusive in Amazon with your ebooks. So if you want to be in Kindle Unlimited, which, by the way, I'm in Kindle Unlimited for all my books except for my sailing memoir, and we can talk about that at some point why I took it out. But basically, bottom line was I was making no money that way, and I couldn't use my. I was reading some of these chapters on my Substack and on YouTube, and I wasn't allowed to do that because that's considered using that content somewhere else, and that would break the terms of Kindle Unlimited. So I took that book out of Kindle Unlimited and only sell it. But that's different than paperbacks. Like if I have my paperback on Amazon, which I do, I can put my books in other places. And that's what people say, going wide. You go wide as an author, as an indie author. A lot of people have their books in many places. They sell it on their own website. They sell it in local bookstores. They sell it in lots of different places. But that's a separate issue. And you get a lower percentage in Amazon for your paperbacks, I think, if you're not exclusive to Amazon. But a lot of people feel that's worth it because then they can go to their local bookstores and they can, put their books in other places. So specifically, the library thing you're talking about is the ebooks.
Absolutely, absolutely. And audiobooks are an entirely different. We're like, there's different ways to do it, but a lot of folks I know uh, have their ebooks exclusive to Amazon because Amazon still has is the 800-pound gorilla. When between Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, the percentages are staggering of the ebook market that they control. However, you're
Yeah.
right, for print books or audiobooks, people often go wide, to Kobo, Apple Books, you name it. They don't limit those exclusively to Amazon.
Awesome. Well, in the coming weeks, we're going to have a lot more, I think, on the libraries and the draft to digital and that whole process because you and I are both exploring that. So we'll definitely get into that, and people can put comments in questions in the comments in the replays, and we will address those questions in later weeks if you're not here live with us. Which brings me to our next segment, unless there's something else you wanted to say about that.
No.
No. Okay. So we want to start doing a Q&A session for the last 5 minutes of our live streams. And I don't think he's here today, but we had a viewer who is a friend of ours, Nick, asked two questions. So I figure we'll start with Nick's questions, and then if anyone's in the studio watching live, or not in the studio, but on any of the platforms watching live, they can put their own questions in for us. And then again, you can put something in the comments section of any of these live videos, and we'll add them to the Q&A session at the end of each episode each week. So we're starting with Nick, who asked, how do you find the time to write with a family and a full-time job? And this one is definitely for you, Ash. I do have a full-time family, but writing is my full-time job. So that is a question Nick has for you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge, and I think the only way it works for me is to wake up early. I try to get up around 5, and get a couple hours in, before it's time for uh, getting the little guy breakfast and getting him off to school and all the family stuff, and then it's work after that, right? So yeah, generally I try to get a couple hours in the morning, and that seems to work for me. I have friends who do the complete opposite, who write late at night, maybe after if they have kids after the kids are asleep and that sort of thing. I can never do that. I'm just so exhausted by the end of the day that I think my creative juices are best early, right? So
Yeah.
I get up at 5. That's how I do it.
Yeah, and for me, the answer to that question is because I do have many other things that I do, especially because we have this traveling lifestyle. For me, it is that getting up early. But now I do my workouts first before anyone's up because I've found that I definitely need to take care of myself before I can take care of my books or my people. And so the way that I get my writing done and how I'm consistently producing my books is I have set writing time during the week, and I do writing sprints generally with other people through an app that I use for my writing called Dabble. And I basically now am writing Monday through Friday from 10:30 to noon, basically an hour and a half of writing sprints. And that way, that's when my son is at school. And generally, I remind my husband on a regular basis, hey, this is my writing sprint time. So part of it is just training your family that this is important, and I am taking this time because it serves us collectively.
Yeah, it's easiest before the little guy's awake because he'll come over and say, "What are you doing?" And you say, "Well, I'm writing," and he'll say, "Well, aren't I more important than writing?" And he's got a point, right? So it's best to do it while he's still asleep.
It's very hard to argue with that because he's not just more important, but he's much cuter too.
Yes, he definitely takes that from his mother's side of the family.
Yes. So anyway, so yeah, that's question number one from Nick, and then he has another question that I thought was good. Let me put it in the little chat box. And if you are here live again, if this is your first time joining us live, this is you can put questions in the comment section. We'll see them in the studio, and then we can put them up here on the screen. So he asks, how do you deal with roadblocks to your writing? That's a very interesting question. Somebody once said to me in some writing workshop I went to, they said, surgeons don't have have surgeon block or surgery block, and they named a bunch of other careers. Like these people just do their job, and they, in the time prescribed, they just get their job done. But writers, we say, well, I've got writer's block. And we do. I mean, we've all sat there staring at the blank page and there are 0 words. And for me, I find I just have to write I tell myself one sentence or even like a few words. Just write something. And once I start, then more sentences come. But yeah, at the start of almost every writing sprint, I'm like, I don't know what to write. I have nothing to say every single time. So I remind myself, yes, you do. Just start writing and something will come. So that's my way. How about you, Ash?
I trick myself, and I've learned uh, a second method as well. The one thing I do is I do, as I said, I'm more of a plotter, and I guess it's a pantser. So I have um, outlines for what I want to write. But one thing I've kind of learned is when I'm at the end of the day, when I'm done writing, I'll leave myself mid-sentence, or I'll leave my a paragraph unfinished that I wanted to finish, so it's bothering me until the next day because I want to get back there and finish that sentence or that paragraph.
Oh,
Uh,
so you actually
and
leave it mid sentence?
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Because it bugs me for 24 hours, or
that would
until
drive
the
me
next morning when I feel
crazy.
like it definitely does, but it's effective. And as far
Oh,
as a
I love
roadblock
it. I love it.
or say writer's block, uh, a very experienced author gave me a great tip, which was always be working on 2 books at the same time. Now that doesn't mean you're writing ad hoc back and forth. Like for me, I'm primarily working on one book, but I have a second book that I'm working on as well. And if I get like, a roadblock where I can't figure out a scene or something's not right, or I need to fix a problem, or I need to make something more realistic, or there's just something bothering me that I haven't figured out, and I don't feel I have to figure it out before I can write more, I just switch to the next book, whether it's for one day or 2 days or a week. And then usually over the course of, like, as you said, going for walks, or sometimes the solution comes to you in the shower or whatever, it'll come to you and then you can go back to the first book. But if you have 2 books you're writing at the same time, you don't really have an excuse because it's so far I haven't had a roadblock in 2 books at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and that for me, I don't have 2 books that I'm writing at the same time, but I do have my Substack blog, essentially newsletter. So right before this live stream, I just posted my reaction to the Bad Bunny Super Bowl, and so that's like using a totally different part of my brain than my mystery thrillers, right? So I think that's actually really good advice. Have something else you're working on, even if it's just journaling or something else that you can shift to a different kind of writing, to keep the creative juices flowing, but also not be so frustrated by your work that you want to throw it out the window. Okay, we actually have another question in the studio. Do you mind going a few minutes long?
No, no, absolutely.
Okay, so Letitia asks, how do you keep motivated to continue and complete your books? Do you allow yourselves grace to just take the day off? That's actually a really good question. For me, my motivation, there's internal and external. One, I I just can't. The feeling that something is undone bugs me. So I want to finish it. That's just the internal. But externally, we create, or I think Ash does too, a pre-order. So I know April 30th, my book is coming out. So those times where I'm like, I really don't want to do this, I think of that deadline and I think of that date and I think how horrified I would be if I didn't have the book done before then. And I think it's really, really important to give yourself actual time off. So I never work on Saturdays because that's Shabbat. So from Friday night to Saturday night, sunset to sunset, I don't work at all. So for me, that helps me stay motivated because I find then Sunday morning I'm like, ooh, I'm ready to write again. Whereas by Friday afternoon, I'm about to like throw the book away. So that's how I do it. How about you, Ash?
No, I mean, for the most part, I agree. I mean, I still have a full-time job, so weekends are somewhat family time. But even on the weekends, basically I just sacrifice sleeping in, right? Because I feel guilty about it. Like if I get up early on a Saturday or Sunday and get my hours in before everyone's awake, and sometimes I even get more time on the weekend because let them sleep in, right? Um, I can get it done. But I think I've kind of realized 2 things. One, if you're going to do this full time, it's actually more work than a normal job. Like there is so much. You're a small businessman or woman. You're basically there's not enough time in the day. There's always something you have to figure out, or something new, or an opportunity, or something you could do better. But it's also kind of a labor of love, right? Like they say, like it's not really work if you love it, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah. But I love that
you
she's
kind of
here
have to
and that
turn
she
pro.
asked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of I think it depends on the book too, because some books it's like, oh, we have to get this done. It's almost like you stay motivated because you just want to be done with it. And then other books it's like, oh, it's a voyage of discovery. It's so exciting to see what's going to happen next. So for me it keeps me motivated
It
still.
is, but there is a mindset shift when you want to do this full time, and I'm not doing it full time yet, but you know, you have to turn pro at it, right? Like if at your day job, you're not going to call in sick for 3 days unless you're sick, or not show up to work for 3 days. You have to show up to work, or there's going to be problems, I imagine. You have to show up and write if you're going to be a full time writer. That's your job.
Good advice. Perfect way to wrap it up. Thank you to those of you that were live here in the studio with us. This was very exciting. We've been doing this for a few weeks now, and it's just invigorating for me. And I think Ash probably would agree that it's just really great to have people here join us live. If you missed it and you're watching it on the replay, put some comments in so we know you did get a chance to see it. And yeah, join us next time, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Mountain Time and 9 p.m. in Berlin. So thank you so much. And anything else you want to say, Ash, before we wrap it up?
So take care,
All
everyone.
right. Thank you. This has been Friends and Authors Live, and we will see you next week. Bye.